Hello, everybody. Welcome to Proc-N-Roll, your guide to practical procurement, where we make procurement rock and roll. Today with us is Natasha, Zach, and myself. Natasha is the pro CPO. She worked at IBM, McKesson, Salesforce, and Nike. Now she is the founder and CEO of Candor Procurement, which is phenomenal. They're enabling transformation results for some of the world's top procurement teams. We have Zach. He's your procurement expert for all things procurement. We catch him today in London. It's really great to be with both of you. I'm Conrad. I love to innovate. I worked at Intel and Adobe, and I'm the founder CEO of Graphite, one of the coolest new procurement technologies out there to help with supplier management. Together, we join you with almost 73 years of practical procurement experience. And here at Proc-N-Roll, we discuss the latest and greatest topics and trends in procurement. And of course, AI is one of the hottest things. We're going to talk about that today. We have another show and tell with Zach. But before we get in there, Natasha and Zach, it seems like it has been forever since we sat in a room together and talked. What's going on, Natasha, out in California?
Right now, rainy, but in the world of procurement, very interesting combination of everything AI. We're going to be living in a world where everything is automated, animated. Everyone reads our minds and things are happening on their own. At the same time, we're working with our clients on, hey, can you help me to deliver the final savings before year ends? And hey, my framework for supplier risk management has leaks. So as we've discussed in many, many episodes, there is very high technology, very high innovation, and extremely advanced intellectual advancements that's happening in the world today, and yet we're still focusing on the basics.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, you're working constantly with enterprises and procurement teams of all sorts of flavors. Are you seeing anything interesting happening as the years come into a close here? Is it more of the same?
Nothing that Natasha hasn't mentioned. I got to be honest, exactly what she said. We've got working on the basics. I think it feels like the investment environment is starting to get a bit better as well with companies. Talking about big organizations, they're starting to invest more again because there was a bit of a lull in the last 12 to 18 months in investing in technology and stuff. So I feel that's picking up maybe. But equally, yeah, fixing the basics, it's all the way here, but also at the same time talking about, intake and orchestration, AI enablement, so everything's just happening all at the same time. Super exciting.
That's interesting. It feels to me like through this year, the hype cycle hasn't changed too much, right? The key buzzwords of the year seem to have been consistent. Of course, AI is on the top there, and AI continues to be a challenge and an opportunity, right? There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of expectations, and still we're in the early innings and the early days of making AI work in our business, which is why we wanted to get practical again, do a show and tell with Zach. I think it was, almost 5 or 6 months ago, Zach, you and I sat down and went through a little AI agent that you had built. Very cool to do, to review contracts, pull key data out of contracts. You inspired me. The combination of that, what you did, and then a conversation I had with another CPO a couple of weeks ago inspired me to try and build the same kind of an agent inside of Notebook LM. And I'm in the process of that still, but it's like pushed me back through another cycle of what are these tools really designed to do well, and how can they automate things in our jobs? What you're working on here from use AI to do intake and orchestration, top of mind for so many people. I think there's this challenge that all of the procurement leaders have, which is what do I buy? What do I build? And then I think I would say foundation below all of that is, how can I learn? Like, how do I actually figure out how to make those decisions? And we've talked about it on the podcast several times, like roll up your sleeves and try some of this stuff. Go try and do it. So Zach, I'd love for you to, walk us through, and this is my first time seeing this, Natasha as well. So you can expect we're going to have a lot of questions for you. We want to keep this practical. We all, all three of us want to learn from this, and everybody listening as well. This is going to be a great session. These show and tells have become some of my favorite episodes of the podcast. So Zach, why don't you start by giving us a bit of context? what's the goal of this AI tool, and how did you decide to jump into it? How did you pick the different technologies that work together? And then, let's, as much as possible, kind of talk through how you did it so people can just dive back in on their, in their side and try it. Like, I'm guessing anyone can do this.
Anyone can do this. That's what I've been doing. I mean, what I'm about to show you, I built back in like May or June time, actually June, July time, I think. And you remember back then when we did the episode on contract analytics and automated contract management, we had a tool that would take the contracts, parse them, store them, all the clauses in a database so you could search the relevant clauses, and then it would also create like a summary of the risks and stuff. And I thought that was a great use case, but then I realized actually that's one of the more basic things, and why don't we try to do something a bit more relevant? So my next project, which I'm going to show you today, is a little bit around an intake agent and orchestration agent. But I'm going to show you like what I've managed to achieve with very little time and budget, right? And I think part of what I want to try and achieve is just pierce the opaque bubble that surrounds a lot of what agents are, how they work, etc. The tool we're going to look at is called N8N. N8N is one of the leading tools for building workflows and automations, and also they've got a great stack and tools for connecting to other systems and also building agents, crucially, right? And the agents they build are based on something called LangChain, which is a framework for developing agents. So I'll take you through a little bit of that. But
Zach, that's N, like the letter N, the number 8, the letter M, like M&M, but N8M.
N8N again. So
N8M. So like M&M, but N8N.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's a very popular, and yeah, it's been a popular tool for consultants who are trying to, like solo consultants, young people trying to sell automations. If you go on YouTube, you'll find tons of videos of people building stuff in N8N. Very little on procurement. I haven't seen anything in procurement, but I'm just messing about. Okay, so what you might see might break, etc. But that's not I think the point is just to like have a bit of a show and tell, right? So I'm gonna try and share my screen so that we can dive right in. Hopefully this works without any issue. Basically, here's where N8N looks like, right? So this is a giant canvas, right, where you can zoom in, zoom out, and then you create these little nodes and you build these workflows. And then within those workflows, you can have agents, right? So I've got a workflow here, which, like I said, is an intake workflow. I'll talk you through it in a second, but you see the agent there. Agent's got access to different tools. I'll walk through all this. And then agent's got a couple other agents reporting into senior agent over here, right? So we're building agent teams and stuff, right? Or at least this is one way to do it. There are many ways you can actually execute a workflow and have AI. Before that, though, I just want to cover very quickly this other process, which is actually what I started out by building. And I built this by following a step-by-step playbook on YouTube to build a RAG pipeline, okay? What is a RAG pipeline? So RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And, a lot of people I work with probably laugh at me because I constantly bang on about RAG, because I think it's really one of the more powerful concepts in AI. All it means is you're able to take your unstructured data and you're able to make that accessible to the AI. So if you think about all of your policy documents, you think about all of your contracts, all of your risk assessments, all of your emails, email correspondence, anything with natural language that's used in procurement today, you can RAG it. So basically chunk it up into little bits of text. And there are different strategies for how you do this. So I'm not going to go into the technical part, but essentially just create a database of those things. And let me show you my database. So this is my database, which is, it's not very basic and it's not very complicated. I got an approval matrix here. I got budget owners, categories. Here in documents is where I have all my chunks. So I took a little procurement policy, and then you can see that it's got little chunks of text in there, right? Which is what I mean when I say RAG. It's taking these little chunks of text. It'll take a little bit of the chunk before and a little bit of the chunk after, so there's some overlap so it doesn't miss context. So basically, this is everything that's been RAG'd, basically. Then
so you're not uploading sort of native PDFs or Word documents. It's digesting it down into text and saving it in chunks. Is that what's happening?
Well, no, that's exactly what I'm doing. So over here, I got my Google Drive trigger. I'm not going to run this RAG pipeline today, but basically what it does is it will pick up my PDFs from Google Drive, run them through this entire process, right? Chunk them up, generate little hashes to make sure it's not duplicating. So if you upload a contract twice, right, it's making sure it's not duplicating, and it's, and resaving the same information twice. It's also, if something changes in the document, it's deleting the previous vectors and downloading the new ones. So there's a bit more to it than just, feeding a contract. But basically, the contract, the PDF is going through this process. It gets turned into text. It then gets, we're checking if it's been duplicated. We're checking if things have changed. We're extracting things, etc. And then we're saving it down in our database, right? As little chunks of text. And these chunks of text is exactly what our agent is going to be looking at when we ask it a question that involves unstructured data. But when we ask it a question that involves structured data, then it's going to look at these tables, right, that I have. So this is an events table, purchase requisition event, record manager, supplier categories, etc. I got my suppliers in here as well, not too many. But this is what it's going to do. And the way the agent will query these tables isn't the same as it looks up. In RAG, what it's doing is it's taking a vector. So I'll give you an example. If you look at documents, it's taking, see where it says embedding vector? Yeah. So it's taking that number there, and then it's going to compare the query that you give it, which could be in an email or something, and turn that into a number, and then compare the two numbers and see how similar are they. And that's how the agent's able to retrieve relevant context. So if you ask it about, hey, can you tell me about my Oracle contract? It's going to go search it's going to turn that entire sentence into a vector, and then it's going to search that vector against your chunks of vectors, and it's going to return anything related to Oracle, anything related to contract. It's going to say, hey, I found 3 Oracle contracts, in the last year. Is there any particular contract you want to see? Right? So that's how the whole RAG and vector embeddings thing works, right?
That feels like, by the way, that sounds really complicated. It probably, when you roll up your sleeves and do it, maybe it's not as complicated as it sounds, but it feels like maybe what it's doing is it's translating the documents into a bunch of little snippets that are more in line with AI language and how AI kind of logically works on things. That's kind of how it feels, the way you're describing it.
Exactly that, yeah. So AI doesn't work on text. It's not a text. I know we call them large language models, but really what it is in the background is just strings of numbers everywhere, right? Just numbers and numbers. And it's just comparing different strings of numbers in a mathematical way, which compares how similar they are. And that's how it's able to retrieve stuff. And this is the same thing that happens when you actually query an LLM. It's been trained to take your little prompt, turn that into a number, and then compare it with like its corpus of numbers, and then bring all the relevant information that has been trained on. So it's the same thing here when we talk about retrieval augmented generation in RAG. It's just saying that, I want you to look at this document, this contract, this policy, whatever it is, right? And you're just making that data available. You're allowing the LLM to read unstructured data. And you're right, it sounds a lot more complicated than it is. I think, to be fair, it does take a couple of weeks maybe to wrap your head around most of this, but it's not that complicated actually as a concept. And yeah, I think it's a bit technical, a bit more technical than people need to get to, because you don't need to do this unless you really want to be able to control how you like save down your documents and your PDFs and stuff and make them accessible. The truth is, in big technologies like ServiceNow, Copilot, etc., they're all going to allow you to upload documents. They already do. And they do this RAG thing for you automatically. Now, that doesn't always result in the best strategy for how you make the data available to the AI agent, but it works for 95% of the use cases. And only if you want to do something really particular do you need to build your own pipeline and your own approach to how you chunk things, etc. Is that too complicated, or does everyone still follow it? Because I feel like that is quite technical idea.
I think I'm with you. It almost creates its own little LLM with your stuff in it. Kind of, it's a little chunk of data that is in the language of an LLM. I mean, after our last, 4 or 5 months ago, whatever it was, I went back and I tried to replicate what you had done in some different technologies, and I got stuck a little bit. And I think it was on this step because as I uploaded large contracts to my tool for it to evaluate, it just it had wonky results. And I suspect it was because it was struggling to sort of deal with the document and retrieving information out of the document versus retrieving information out of this RAG kind of mindset.
Well, exactly. I mean, when you upload a document now into ChatGPT, it does the same thing. It turns that entire document into maybe one massive string of numbers. But if the document is huge and you have hundreds of these documents, it's not going to be able to process them all at once. So it needs a strategy to break them down so that it can search them efficiently, right? Yeah, so that's all this is. So yeah, we started on a technical concept, but let me move it to something a bit more practical. And to be fair, when I talk about, sorry, Conrad.
No, yeah, go. Yeah, it's good. Sorry, I got all these questions. I hope I'm not slowing you down too much here.
No, not at all. But I think N8N is quite a technical tool. I say that you don't need to know how to code or anything. It's meant to make non-coders develop whatever they want, basically, in terms of a workflow. So you can get quite technical with it. But otherwise, I'm certain anyone can build an agent, and you don't need to build something as complicated as I have. And what I've built is complicated and doesn't, it's not perfect. I'm just playing around here and trying to learn the ropes. But let me give you an example of what's possible, because now we've taken our policy and our structured data and we've ragged it. So now it's made available to the LLM. We've got the rest of our data here, which is all our PRs, purchase requisitions. Some of these tables are empty, but I want to give you an idea of the kinds of things that you can add in, right? So I can very easily turn this into like a PO. I can create a PO table and start storing my purchase orders. I can create an invoice table to store my invoices. Like I'm controlling the database, and I'm using Supabase as the database tool. Okay, but let me show you how this works. So if I create a new email here, let's say I want to send it to my agent. Okay, let's imagine I'm a stakeholder in a business. Sorry. I'm a stakeholder in a business, okay? And I want a new PR is my subject. I say, hi, I want to buy some software for $200K. I have budget approval. Can you help? And then I can say also, do I need to run a sourcing exercise? What's the policy say? Also, do we have any preferred software suppliers? Well, let me make it a bit more complicated. Any preferred laptop suppliers? Lastly, can you give me word for word our policy on preferred suppliers, right? So I'm just a stakeholder and I've signed it off as Jim or Zach or whatever, right? Let's go Zach. So I'm going to send that off, all right? And that's hopefully it works. I just sent my email. So I'm going to go to my workflow now. Let's wait for the email to boost. There you go. I go here. I'm just going to execute the workflow. And you can see N8N was so cool as you can see it working. So it's going through this process of extracting the text, and it's hit my orchestrator agent, and I'll take you through a little bit what the orchestrator is doing. But the orchestrator, the first thing it's done is it's recognized this is a new PR request because I asked for software. And so it knows that it needs to go and use this fields extractor tool or sub workflow, which basically is extracting the fields that it needs for a purchase requisition from my email. And I didn't give it that much information, right? After that, it's going to go and check with my commercial analyst and my compliance analyst. My commercial analyst is dealing with everything to do with preferred suppliers, buying channels, what suppliers I have, etc. And then my compliance analyst is checking things like the policy and the approvals and things like that, right? The approvals is a table in my database. The policy, like we talked about, are these chunks of text from the policy. There, it's gone back, and there you go. They both fed back to the orchestrator, and I'll show you what the setup looks like in a bit. But then the orchestrator is, there you go, and it's send the email. Now, I don't think the email reception is working right now, but actually, no, it has. There you go. Let's see. Email isn't formatted perfectly, but let's see what it says. Hi, Zach. Thank you for the clear summary and letting me know you have budget approval. That's a great start. Here's what we have so far. Category software, spend $200,000. Threshold for sourcing is usually $100,000, so a formal sourcing exercise will certainly be needed. Policy evidence is not 100% explicit for software of $100,000, so it's being escalated for confirmation.
Hey, Zach, looks like you're reading something, but like on it came right back into this inbox.
Oh, there sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I see it now.
I popped it up into a different window. Maybe that's why. So it's saying, letting you know your budget approval. That's a great start. Here's what we have so far. Category, spend, not a formal sourcing exercise, not sure if needed. It's saying our preferred laptop supplier is Technova Limited. Policy word for word. A preferred supplier is a supplier explicitly flagged as preferred in the preferred supplier tool in one or more categories. So it's giving me the exact wording, right? But then it's also said, to move forward quickly, could you please provide currency for the purchase, brief description of the software, your region, cost center, needed by date, supplier name, and 1-2 sentence business justification. Once these are filled in, I'll guide you on the sourcing next steps and paperwork. I'll see you through each stage. Thanks for collaborating.
Wow.
So, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Because if you look at my agent here, my orchestrator, and let's look at the prompt, which is actually horrible. I got to be honest. I used ChatGPT to create multiple versions of this. I was testing things. So there's a lot of redundant stuff. But you can see here, I've said, you're the requisition orchestrator. Your role is to orchestrate things. Here's your personality and values and how you need to greet users by name. You need to acknowledge what they say. You need to keep things short. Don't like write huge amounts of text. You do need to give the AI a lot of these kinds of guidance, because otherwise it will go off the rails, right? Like, you got to remember, this isn't ChatGPT is tailored to be ChatGPT. But when you're actually just using their API or using any LLM API, you get to control how that agent behaves. And so you got to give it all the rules. Then I said the inputs, you're going to get an email in JSON, right? And one thing I haven't set up, but I can set up, like I say, you're going to get all the prior messages as well. Because every time I get an email from a user, I could save it in my database as a chat history, right? Why that's cool, because it means if I've emailed it 3 weeks ago on the topic, it can just go look up the email history as well. Again, using chunks or just by looking at what's in the database, doing a SQL query, and returning all of that context so that it almost can pick up where you left off a month ago or whatever. And it's the history is authoritative. You have to look at it. Then I've said, here's your tools and data. You're going to use the fields extractor. Use it when there's a new purchase request. Whatever. What else do I have here? Read the query. Read the query for existing PRs, read the query for suppliers, read the query for users. I'm giving it all the tools that it's got. The agent by itself won't know, just because I've hooked up these tools. And by the way, when I say tool, you see all these little tentacles? That's all what we mean by a tool. It's just like, say, I've got fields extractor, suppliers. In some cases, this tool here, suppliers, is literally just a punch out to my little 0 by suppliers table. That's all that is, right? So it's very, very, very simple. But in cases where I've got this little fields extractor, I've got that punching out to a sub workflow here, which is like its own independent workflow, which just extracts fields and compares them to what's in my database. Right? I got a bit of code there that I got from ChatGPT as well. Remember, I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer. Like, this is, I've never been. But that's basically how it works. So it's got all these tools. I'm telling it what those tools are. Then we go back into the prompt again. Some rules that I've given it as well. You must always consult both the PR commercial analyst and PR compliance analyst. Again, you have a lot of flexibility. You configure the agent, right? This is what ChatGPT in this case came up with. Rules of engagement, never invent, always add the context, always do the checks, consult your agents, etc. Escalation when you need to escalate, etc. Parse. Okay, and here's where it gets interesting. Like, what's the workflows? Because it's an orchestrator. So this agent isn't doing something specific. It's more orchestrating. So I'm trying to tell it, like, here's all the different steps they need to go. So first, you need to parse the intent. Like, what is it that this email is about? Is it a new PR or is it an existing PR query? Because you're the PR orchestrator. If it's a new PR, you run the fields extractor. So basically, I'm giving it a bit of a step-by-step. Again, ChatGPT wrote all this. I know it looks like a lot of what it needs to do, right? With existing PRs, with verification, etc. And I've even given it some rules around how it needs to compose the reply, right? Open with praise and reassurance, highlight what was well provided. Did
you come up with all of that? How to do the praise and reassurance?
No, I kind of, in my prompt, when I asked ChatGPT to create the prompt, I was asking it like things like, I want to make this feel as natural as possible. I want it to feel like a human is on the other side. And so when I said that, ChatGPT is putting all of this stuff into the prompt, the agent, because that's how you get the agent to behave like a human. All these little acknowledgements and, keeping things short and, explicitly warn if suppliers aren't onboarded, for example. Present clarifications in a friendly bullet list. So never just write, a bunch of sentences after each other. So I'm trying to give it the behaviors that I want to see, right? And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There's a response quality checklist in here, which I don't think this does anything. What would be ideal is you have another agent that checks the quality. But anyway, that's the orchestrator. The orchestrator has access.
I was going to stop you for a second. I am dying to hear what's inside of Natasha's head right now as she's watching this and thinking about her existing clients and work she's doing.
Oh man, to get inside of my head, that's a very dangerous territory. But let me welcome you in. So a couple of things. I think I missed in the beginning what you were building to solve, right? So I'm observing it more as a process without understanding what the end goal is. Like, what were you building it for? But the main question that is going through my head is that buy versus build. Like, do we think that every procurement professional 2-3 years from now will be expected to build such flows? And if they do, can we potentially create a chaos when everyone will be building their own flow and connecting systems that and that would be completely outside of the processes, policies, and all generally acceptable rules. And it took you considerable amount of time to learn how to do it, and you were willing to invest it because that's your interest. I'm looking at it through the eyes of Gen X, and I'm like, oh man, that will take me some time to master this skill. And I'm asking myself a question, is it the right area for me to focus on, right? Because yes, I hear you saying that you're not a developer and you're not a coder, and this is not coding. I understand that these are blocks, and probably once it can probably be replicated fairly easily. But the initial reaction is that this is intense, this is intimidating, and will we expect that every procurement professional is experienced learner of this?
These are great questions, Natasha. And maybe you're absolutely right. Maybe I should have provided the context. Like I said, I was just creating an intake agent. So basically, my goal is to have a PR agent and sub-agents so that anytime a business needs to raise a purchase requisition or ask about a purchase requisition or check the status, they email or message chatbot this agent, and the agent is able to do whatever it is that they need to do, whether that's check the status of the PR, move a PR along, chase a different stakeholder. Now, I haven't built all those functionalities because you're right, that'll take a very long time to build. But the whole idea is to basically, have if I wanted a bunch of agents managing all my purchase requisitions in the business, I can do that. Now, to your point about it's too much and do procurement people and normal stakeholders need to actually figure out how to do this stuff. Absolutely not. I think there is an advent of something called low-code and no-code tools, of which Net8n is one. But if you look at Copilot, they've just released a no-code platform. ChatGPT have a no-code platform. So they all look very similar to this in that you're just building little process flows. You don't need to get this complicated with it, right? You can definitely build an agent that does just one thing. For me, though, the value comes when you do have this orchestration, you have multiple agents. And I'm not saying this setup is the right one. Like I said, I'm just experimenting here. But where you get real value is when you're able to take like a process within procurement and then have multiple agents run basically across the whole process. Because then you've got true automation, you've got true human-like agent that's helping you. And that was really my goal here, just with PRs. You need to replicate this for everything else in procurement. Now, in terms of how you get there, how businesses get there, 100%, these tools are going to be made available in the big enterprise stacks. Even tools like Zip and Oro, which are orchestration tools, have this low-code, no-code agent builder and workflow setup. So it looks quite similar to this, although probably a bit more user-friendly than what this looks like. I like this one because it shows the little squiggly lines and everything. It's quite cool.
But Zach, if your orchestration tool or your P2P or your ERP has a flow embedded in the tool, by you creating a parallel flow, aren't you creating chaos?
Yes, I think if you're buying a Zip or a Oro or something like that, just use the out of the box because they've already thought about all this stuff and they probably got answers. So you're right. You don't need to sit and build. But I do think that there will be cases and aspects in procurement where having people who know how to build something in a Zip or in an Oro or in Microsoft, you're going to need these designers. Like this kind of activity. I know it looks complicated with what I've built, but this kind of design activity is something that you'll end up having people do in procurement. It won't be everyone in procurement. I think, like you said, it'll be controlled. So maybe your center of excellence, or you'd have like a dedicated team that do this, and they work with IT, who actually are the implementers, and the team are more the business analyst side of it and explaining how the process needs to work, etc. But there is potentially value in organizations also building. Like I said, in Zip, you can probably download templates of flows and stuff, but equally you can build your own templates in very simple fashion. And Zip is tailored for procurement. N8N is like, it's not tailored for anything. You need to build everything yourself, which is why it looks intimidating and complex. My goal here is just to experiment with the tool and see, push the limits of AI and just see like, what can I actually do? There's a lot of things that I would improve here. Like there's not a lot of controls. There is explainability and auditability. Because I go to the PR orchestrator, I can see the logs, and I could see all the different prompts and stuff. I don't know if you can see it there, but I could dive in and see how all the different actions that it's run and what its logic was and what calls it made to OpenAI, etc. So that's going to be part of it. So yeah, it's a balance between, people in the business who don't need to do the stuff, and then people who actually do need to know the technical part. And I guess I'm just straddling both worlds at the minute, right? With this experiment.
Zach,
I've always been your fan, but now I'm completely in awe, and how advanced you are and how phenomenal this is. So I am superbly impressed by your ability to build it. But right now, and this is the first time I'm seeing this. So, and right now in my head, I'm very skeptical about, I've been in procurement for 26 years. Risk is the first thing I think about. I think about benefits after I think about risk. And, I see a lot of potential triggers that may be less helpful and more harmful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think
I'm not progress denier. This is just my initial reaction that people can start messing up and just creating their own things.
Oh, without a doubt. You go on. Sorry.
So I think Natasha's bringing up a very interesting point, which is who's going to be creating agents inside of an organization. Zach, you kind of jumped and said maybe it's somebody in the center of excellence. And that to me, that's the for sure answer on an agent that is going to try and deliver capability across the organization. Like it'd be crazy for everyone on the team to be randomly building all this chaos and they're all sort of competing with each other, right? Versus, hey, we're going to work together and we're going to have an agent that does this or that or the other as part of a solution that we bought or as an augmentation of a solution that we bought or whatever. But when I'm looking at this, I'm also thinking that as a worker in the enterprise, I'm asked to do stuff that I consider to be the total waste of time all the time. Right? You jumped into a pretty sophisticated department or enterprise-wide solution or process in terms of orchestration, because I don't think you'd want to have a bunch of orchestration agents competing with each other. But I think there's a lot that I like. If I look back to my job, people are constantly emailing me or calling me asking you one little bit of your agent was, what's the status of my purchase order? How much money is left on my purchase order that I can continue to invoice against? And that's consuming 20 or 30 or 50% of my time, all this random trivia stuff. And yes, I'd love for my boss in the center of excellence to fix that. But if I come to the table with a basic set of skills, when an email hits my inbox, I could just be like, well, if it's this, this, or this, then here's a query. You can grab this and respond back with that, with the status and how much money's left or whatever. So I do think that the emerging generation that's coming out of school, that's learning how to do these tools in school, right? Like in school, they're doing projects just like this, that when they hit the desk, they're going to be like, well, this is dumb. Let me just put it in N8N or something. And boom, all of a sudden that 10% of their job is automated. I don't know if that's the case. Are you seeing new graduates coming out with, you work in an organization that hires probably more new graduates than, Natasha and I do in our businesses, but what are you seeing with the emerging generation?
I'm not seeing a ton of it like in my organization, but let me ask you, just go to YouTube and type N8N. Find me a single person in any of those videos. Well, of course you will find people who are older, right? But there's tons and tons of young people building cool tools, and they're usually focused on like sales and like CRM and these kinds of things, right? Automating those kinds of processes. No one's really doing procurement. But you can tell that there's a real enthusiasm for this kind of thing. And like I said, I think N8N is one of the more technical, has a technical learning curve to it. I agree, but it was simple enough for me to do. Okay. And I appreciate Natasha saying she's in awe of what I've done and stuff. It did take a little bit of time. It took a few weeks, but that's not a lot. It's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, right? To get to this level of, if you want to call it proficiency. And just remember, I still haven't coded anything here. But these other tools that people will buy, because Natasha asked the point, make versus buy. I do think you will be buying software in procurement. A lot of organizations will be buying software like Zip, like Microsoft Copilot, etc. And you will have to build these flows and agents. You have to design the flows and agents in order to realize the benefits of AI. There is no other way you can do that. Case in point, if you wanted to build an agent today that just generates RFPs for you, is it really you can do that in ChatGPT or in Copilot. You just create a little agent and say like RFP generator. Your job is to take an RFP and create like 200 questions and make sure you include these questions, etc. That is an agent, but that on its own is not going to be transformative to the enterprise, right? It's going to save someone a ton of time creating RFPs, and so you've saved a little bit of time there. But the way you get the real value, I think, is in having an automated, orchestrated flow. And then you have agents sitting in that workflow. And my example isn't the best example because, like you said, this might not be the right framework that people land on. There might be something more controlled, but having agents in a workflow do stuff. And that's where I think you get to have all the benefits of AI. And ultimately, I think my vision here is like procurement in 5 to 10 years is like fully automated in terms of this stuff, right? PRs, POs, contract reviews, risk analysis, sourcing, RFPs, market scanning. You can have agents do all of that stuff, and they all need to be working together. So yeah, I do think procurement needs to reach a level of technical proficiency. All business functions need to do that, not just procurement. And yeah, I think we'll get there eventually. But to Natasha's point, a lot of the hard work will be done by the platform providers, who will provide more user-friendly tools for doing this and achieving this, right? They'll do the hard work around what is this agent supposed to look up? What is my database supposed to be like? These are stuff that I've built because I wanted control. But when you implement a Zip or an Oro, you don't need that. You don't need to do all that. Like they have a database already. It's configured already. Yeah, you get my point. So.
Yeah. So, okay. So I gotta echo Natasha. I'm impressed. I'm in awe. Like this is pretty amazing. I realize part of that is because it's like new technology and new visualizations, and I don't know what's behind every one of those little circles and rectangles. And you could, if we had 3 hours, you could show us here.
Exactly.
So, but I am convinced that I can go learn how to do this. Like I'm an old dog. I can learn these new tricks. I want to drill in on something. You said it took you 2 weeks. Is that like 80 hours or 100 hours or like 10 hours spread over 2 weeks or 20? If you just had to guess and say my investment into figuring out this kind of thing in N8N and Supabase was,
I'd say all in all, everything here you see is probably about 50 hours of work. 50. So like a good solid week of spread out over a couple of weeks or a couple of months, just a good solid week of investing to learn. That's not too much, by the way, to learn something totally new.
Yeah, it's very, very affordable. While you were talking, Zach, I was thinking that, and I'm going to get for a second on my favorite soapbox, in negotiating with suppliers that traditionally we were asking for what it's going to cost us to buy their goods or services without really understanding deeply what does it take for them to create or produce something, especially when it comes to technology solution. For buyers of any level, from a junior buyer to CPO, just for professional buyers, understanding how some stuff is developed actually will create a lot of transparency to pricing. So I think it will make us procurement professionals more knowledgeable when we negotiate with suppliers, because we no longer just blindly trusting the message of how labor intensive it is to build something. We actually now know what it takes to build something. So it's an interesting angle to kind of like we're stepping outside of our traditional role of just a buyer. Bring me the good, bring me the service, let me just buy it. Now you can have an educated conversation about what it takes to build it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a big part of it. I think, yeah, like I said, most people do not need to figure all this stuff, but you will probably have people, just like you have centers of excellence today that do process mapping. And yeah, it's just taking that into the world of no code and low code environments. Yeah. Like this compliance agent, for example, I know. So what does this compliance agent do? Their job is to just validate purchase requisitions against authoritative procurement policy and required approvals. That is it, right? And remember, I've given it the policy, and I've given it the approval matrix, etc. And yeah, I think you could build something way simpler than this, but this is quite cool because I can literally just ask about anything in my. So I can go like, let's try something else. What would you like to ask it? Sorry, I keep doing this. We can ask it. I would like to raise a PR for consulting. My budget is $50K. I'm going to put the symbol because it's going to ask me for the currency. My cost center is CC01. Okay. Now I just made this up. It should come back and tell me CC01 doesn't exist as a cost center. And I can say, what are the approvals I need? What sourcing do I need? And then we can go sign out Jim. Send that off. Let's see what happens. Because like this is what I built this thing. I just want to test, like, is the agent flexible enough to address all these edge cases and all these different things? So I've sent that off so we can run the exercise again. And let me this time take you a little bit through the scary looking process flow. Okay, so this first node is just getting literally all this is. It looks complicated. All this entire node just says get the latest email from Outlook. That is it. Next one says, what is it? Extract the email text only, including formatting with computer level proficiency. That's it. Next one, get session messages. Go look up other messages for this user and make sure you look up the chat history so that you can add more context so the agent can work with that data. Next one, aggregate all of that data that you've just collected, both the email and the user history, right? That's all these two steps are. Is just see, I've got my email text and my session history, which isn't working right now, but that's all that's doing. And then it's passed it straight to the PR. We've already been to the PR through what this PR orchestrator is doing. So it looks complex. It's not that complex. All PR orchestrator is doing, it's linked to OpenAI. That's all that is. It's got access to my users table. That's all. This whole thing here is just it. These are all like pre-filled, 90% of them, and you just link it to your table in Supabase, and it's there. You go. It's linked to my suppliers table, so it's able to see this table basically where I've got Market Genius, Byte World, CleanCo, ConsultX, Legalese. These are my suppliers and their contacts, right? So that's all that's doing. It can see my users, my purchase requisitions from my PR table, my suppliers. It's got access to this fields extractor tool, so it can extract fields and compare them against what is required for a purchase requisition. By the way, you talk about sorry, go on, Conrad.
So you've built these tables and you have these systems over here.
Yeah.
By the way, when you talk through this at that level, it reminds me of when I worked on large projects, and you kind of do level 1 process as level 2 process. So you're kind of outlining all the steps in the process, and then you're organizing it into a flow, and you're pointing it to different, things that it needs to figure stuff out, right? Some of those things might be like, if I want to know the PO status, I might point it to SAP. So have you tried to point these to enterprise systems yet, or just to your own database?
So this is the thing. If you were working with ServiceNow, or you were working in Microsoft, or you were working with a number of these enterprise tools, they'll already have out-of-the-box connectors to SAP, Oracle, everything. N8N, I don't think does SAP, but it does a lot. So if I look at, let's see what it has for Microsoft. It has SQL, it has Teams, it has OneDrive, it has Excel, it has SharePoint, it has Azure Monitor. Like, it's got a lot of tools. Let's see if it has Oracle. Nothing for Oracle. Let's see if it has SAP. Not quite.
But these integrations are agent level API integrations that kind of let it get back into the tool.
Exactly. So
when we were talking before, we were talking about OpenAI's Agentic browser that kind of layers on top of my login into that tool. Is any of that available here, or is that kind of blending technologies right now?
Let's see. They've got a number of things from OpenAI. I don't think it'll have a browser extension, but it's got a chat model. It's got my embeddings model. My embeddings means turning words of text into strings of numbers, so the LLM can understand.
Yeah.
I think you said that turning it into language, the model, the agent can read, which is exactly what that is.
This will just mature, right? These platforms like N8M, or I know that the procurement platforms that are calling that they have agents, I'm sure that they're trying to figure out how to like have those agents reflect back into their own system and enterprise systems as well. But like we're in the early days here. I know that we've so I want to kind of pull the conversation into, okay, like what are the practical things we can take away from this? But before I do that, is there anything, I know you ran another example. Let's see the final email back from example number 2.
It says, "Hi, Jim. Thank you for outlining your consulting requisition, providing your cost center and budget. Great start. We're making good progress. To proceed, I need a few more details and some clarifications. Your cost center CC01 could not be found. And if you look at my database, it doesn't exist. Please double check and provide the correct cost center. Please provide a brief description of what you want to buy, the region." Because again, I've trained it on what fields are required for a purchase requisition, so it's outlining those fields.
Yeah, very
cool. And then it's saying at the end, after receiving this, we'll confirm your approval path and required sourcing steps. And your request will likely require a tender. And that's basically it. Yeah. So there, it's created a little, like, it's not only returning this in text, it's created a little record that I can reuse into my process where it's like a table. It's saying category consulting, spend 5,000, currency pounds. These are the present fields. These are the missing fields. Here are the invalid fields. So this is quite technical here, but again, the agent is doing all of this, and it's just, you're just telling it what output it needs to provide. So basically this is the idea of having an agent that can just have access to all your data, have other agents do specific jobs, and it just orchestrates, and it can basically understand what a user is trying to do and deliver a service.
So your top 3 learnings here, Zach. So you went through all of this 50 hours or 60 hours or whatever it was. You've invested that time. What are your top 3 practical insights that came out of that exercise?
Okay, honestly, one of my practical insights is do not be afraid of this. It looks way more complex and as scary as it is, especially when you first throw it up there. I didn't appreciate that so much because I've been in it for 40 hours, 50 hours. You guys see it for the first time. For me, it's like much simpler, right? I think the second thing to realize is, to Natasha's point, you do not need to get to do this, but you will not everyone in procurement needs to be able to do this. Everyone in procurement needs to be able to use AI for their own personal productivity. You need to be able to use Copilot that's provided by your business to help with your personal day-to-day productivity. But procurement functions should invest in teams that are going to build out these processes, these agents, so they can really automate and get strategic benefits in the future. That would be a second lesson. The third lesson I'd say is it's still early, right? A lot of the things around controls and governance and risk, like Natasha mentioned, that is all, by the way, it can be done. It's got to be thought through a little bit more. Because Natasha, I'll give you an example. You see that little fields extractor sub workflow? I don't know if you remember. It extracts the fields from the email. That isn't running with AI. It's actually running with like just old hard code just comparing, like, does this cost center match? Because sometimes code works better than AI. It can make mistakes with code. You see if like coded in. So you got to get that balance between what's an automation and where do you actually need an agent to do something, right? And maybe just to wrap this up, you see how I had one agent talk to multiple agents that control different things. That is one framework or one approach to how this could evolve in the future, how the world of AI can evolve in the future. Another way might be you just have an automated process and agents are just like at specific points, but you don't have agents talking to agents. It's a big complicated world out there for agents and AI. And,
For sure.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you the last question before we wrap up. There are many tools out there that can read the contract and they can spit out the summary of the contract. They can say, you have this clause, you don't have this clause, your payment term is 30 days, you have limitation of liability, you have infringement and product ownership and everything else that should be in the contract. But what I still haven't found in as offering from any third party is that the tool that reads the contract and says, you have payment terms 30 days. However, the company of your size, based on our benchmark, can have payment terms 60 days. Or you have limitation of liability with this verbiage. However, based on your public profile or based on the nature of the stuff you're buying. So in other words, there's no tool out there, at least I haven't found it, and I've been really seriously looking, that would have both ability to read the contract, do extraction, but then also have benchmark and compare that extract with a benchmark and come up with a recommendation how the contract can be improved. Can I build that?
Perfect question, because that is exactly an example of an edge case. You have thought of something you want that no one in the market is providing exactly like you want it. So if that's something that adds value to procurement team, go off and build it as a little process with some agents in it. It's not that complicated, right?
Okay.
It won't
If I miss the next couple of recordings, you guys know what I'm busy with. I am building my own tool. Take the ticket, get in line. Maybe I'll let you use it.
I think you mentioned, Natasha, in one of our last episodes, like having a tool that can, for example, take an email from a prospect and turn that into like actionable proposal and start get a PowerPoint going. Like that is, again, another perfect use case. I'm sure there are tools out there. Maybe they don't do exactly what you want them to do. Maybe not tailored for consulting, for example. Maybe you as a business decide it's better for me to build this for exactly my own process, exactly how I want it. But for the bigger stuff, the more day-to-day stuff, there are absolutely the enterprise-wide platforms that you can use that you won't bother building a PO system. Yeah, you probably just use.
Yeah, but proposals that I put for the prospects is the same as proposals that procurement put for the stakeholders. How they're going to approach it's negotiation strategy, it's sourcing strategy, it's category strategy, right? So it's an approach on how you address the business. So there's nothing unique about, like, very, very similar.
I think if you look at Zip and some of these, they'll have marketplaces and people are going to build these flows for you. And then you're going to be able to just plug and play them if you have Zip, or plug and play them if you have whatever, so maybe that's where the future is going. But yeah, for now, a lot of these use cases are not being catered to fully.
I think I just created the self-imposed challenge that, like, in 6 months I should be able, or sooner, or in 3 months, like, I should be able to have an episode when I will be walking you through my flow.
Yes, I'm happy to help you.
I think that's the challenge sent and received, Natasha. When we may have to, this brings me to kind of the piece I wanted to put as we wrap up here. So, you've said basically any of us can go do this, and I believe that's true. I mean, I played around with some of this stuff. It's not, there's like cracks and gaps that you have to figure out how to navigate your way past. And if you've got resources or friends that can code, or some experience, or just patience to like work in ChatGPT and ask questions and experiment, you can generally find your way through them. But it does take a little bit of patience. So there's a bunch of people out there listening. kind of feeling like me and Natasha, oh my gosh, Zach he is the expert in all things procurement. Like, look at him now. He's the but by the way, I coined the phrase.
We'll have to change the introduction. We need to call him like Guru Zach.
Yeah. Well, I earlier you said something about chaos, and I think he is our ultimate agent of chaos now. But so that doesn't happen. When somebody out there's like, I want to go do this, like, just like Natasha, like, I want to go figure out how to build my own agent. Let's have I'm kind of guessing what you're going to say here, but what are your kind of 5 to 10, like, do this, and this. This is your learning process and your get started process in order to get going here.
Yeah, I think you know what I'm going to say.
Go to YouTube.
Yes, exactly. Just go to YouTube, and honestly, there's a bazillion videos. And by the way, if N8N isn't the right platform for you, there's a bunch of others like Make and Zapier, which we did the first demo in, and a bunch of others. Maybe some of them are easier than others, right? I think I settled on N8N because it gave the most flexibility and like creativity. And it
looks cool when it spins too. Like, hey,
exactly, it's also cool when it spins. That was the main. Yeah, that's the best part. So go on YouTube, just watch some videos, see if it piques your interest. If it does, go and try build your own agents. For those of you that don't want to do that, keep an eye out for when your organization rolls out Copilot, rolls out all these, and then you go use Copilot and build something in Copilot. Like, it might not be a agentic workflow, but it will be an agent for you, for example, that helps you with your day-to-day. So everyone can benefit from AI.
Well, I feel 6 months behind Zach. So my next comment is sort of like, every month that you don't take the challenge that Zach is talking about and actually roll up your sleeves and try it is another month behind that you need to kind of catch up on this stuff. But I think that, Natasha's brought up some things in the past, like in the old day, in the old CPO role, I had a team of people that were looking at technology and doing things. I think all of us as procurement leaders, we need to roll up our sleeves and get into this stuff far enough that it's not intimidating and we don't have somebody, guiding us down a path because we're afraid of really diving into it and understanding and sort of, because in the end, I think the leader still needs to be that conductor of the future, right? Like, I have a vision. This is what I want to see. You're going to have to pick technologies like, all of the standard procurement suite, but maybe some of these other augmenting sort of automation tools. Like, don't be afraid. Zach, I'm going to go back to your list here. Don't be afraid. Everyone needs to do this or should take advantage of it for personal productivity reasons. 100% agree. And I think most people are kind of doing that with generative. Like, just cross the gap and get into the agentic space. Probably your center of excellence team, it needs to double down. Maybe there's some extra YouTube or training that they need to get. Don't freak out about the fact that there's no controls and governance, because you don't need to start this by putting your entire enterprise at risk, right? The goal of these first few projects is learning, getting familiar and getting comfortable. And yeah, huge shout out, Zach. Our goal is to kind of figure out how to ride your coattails and catch up to you.
Hey, you guys aren't that far
behind. Great work. Congratulations. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Everyone. Thanks, everybody. Proc-N-Roll.
Proc-N-Roll.